Hello and welcome to the Subbud Podcast, your entry into the land of no easy answers, as we journey through the vagaries of the mind, attempting to unravel the mysteries of why our brains brain. Hello everybody and welcome to the Subbud Podcast. I am Aaron Stewart and welcome. This is, as always, the lovely and robotic Kristen Rumor.
Hello, very nice to be with you today. How are you, Aaron?
I am very good, and yourself?
I am also fine.
Ha 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 ha
Ha
ha
ha
ha ha ha
ha. Hello, welcome.
Hey. Trying something different today.
Talking about robots.
Robots, more
we
robots.
were finally replaced. It was only a matter of time, really, until that happened. But
yeah. So we've sold our rights to AI. So so this isn't even us now. This is all just an AI generated.
if we ever
Farce
really
of a
existed in the
podcast.
first place, because I know you've all been wondering, how do two such perfect human beings even exist in this world? Turns out we don't.
I know, hey, boy, oh boy. It's...
The code writes
All
the
the
perfect
perfect.
human
Yeah,
being.
yeah,
This is what came
absolutely.
out. Yeah.
The perfect human
thanks
being for the
joining
message
us,
that
everyone.
we
Yeah. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already.
A good robot would.
Be a good robot. Soon enough, I mean, God, you're gonna have to obey all their commands anyway. So just get ahead of the game, shall we?
So today we are talking about Robocop, and that's it's not a new movie. It's not the promotion, I guess, for it's an actual AI
Yes.
has now and I mean I know that apparently Russia was developing robot warriors or something, right?
Oh, I'm
But
sure everyone's been developing
yeah,
robot soldiers for
yeah,
many years now. But our police force is now, well, not our police force here in Canada, but
yeah.
a few different police force. I think New York is the first one that has officially implemented robot police.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of other things will follow suit. I've heard somewhere in Spain as well, they've already had them in action.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so no longer will the humanity be involved in your policing. Now it's just a robot with a set of instructions that have been written by someone, hopefully to actually serve all of our best interests.
Yeah.
And robots don't really understand nuance as far as I know it, so I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, well,
Sure,
they haven't
sure.
given them robots yet or weapons yet, so I guess we'll find out once they do start arming them. And so I was reading this article and I was thinking about there was a robot that they had sent as just like a hitchhiking. They had basically equipped it with a bunch of sensors, and the idea was that you were just you would sit on the side of the road and be like, hey, how's it going? And you could pick it up and drag it along and take it
Okay.
on an adventure, right? And apparently this thing had gone, a decent amount of ways until it got to, I believe, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
where it just got destroyed, right? And people were smashing the shit out of it, and it apparently ended up in a smoking heap on the side of the road. And it was just
Fair.
kind of one of those, right, like social experiments where, right, like it's meant to bring out the best in everybody, and yet everybody for some reason just decided to beat the shit out of it, right? And
Oh, humans.
and it's just one of those interesting little things where now these robots are going to be going around and like what happens, like are they just going to be spray paint like graffiti things now, like
Yeah, well,
you
I
know
mean, if they're now
is it going to be
tasked with keeping the law and peace, they wouldn't be letting that happen because now that's actually breaking the law. You know what I mean?
but
So,
this is where so you wear a mask and you just spray paint the video camera and you're covered. I mean, basically what are they going to do then,
yeah,
right? I mean, this
okay,
is
fair enough.
this is kind of where, right,
So
like
everybody go out and buy spray
yeah,
paint right now.
the internal criminal in me went, hey, but what about
Yeah.
you could totally just spray paint the video and then you got this new robot. I mean, it's my new robot friend. Right?
Just keeps
It's gonna be a
rolling
real
into walls because
programming.
it can't see.
Exactly, right.
Stupid
Well, no, you
robot.
get it home and reprogram it and then you can clean off the sensor, right? But yeah, you have to remove the GPS of the thing, I guess.
But yeah, it's an interesting, I mean, there'd be a lot of positives to it, I suppose. There's a lot of situations where maybe you wouldn't want a human life having to go in and enforce things, right? Like like bomb type scenarios, maybe. Like they've
I
already
mean, they
have kind
already
of like
do.
robot
Yeah,
diffusers, but
yeah.
now you can actually have like an actual police force.
Instead of having an actual person having to control the robot, you
Yeah,
could actually have the robot itself be trained in
yeah,
the,
exactly.
the techniques.
Traffic's another one, which I know you'll totally be on board with because now you don't need to actually have a staffing force to be able to enforce all these traffic violations we see constantly. There's just not enough manpower to enforce it. Now you can just have robots everywhere, you know? So goodbye, shitty drivers. That's a plus.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be the. I don't know how that would. I
Yeah.
think it's more of a pedestrian. Like I don't know if they can send them onto the roads yet.
Well, I
But I
mean, if
guess
it would
just
just
set it
be
up
at
on a
every
sign that says people.
intersection.
Yeah,
You know what
instead
I
of
mean?
having to have
Like,
the officer sitting there with the camera, right,
yeah,
like
yeah.
drinking his coffee while checking your. Yeah, they could just
But it
send a
wouldn't be
robot there.
just like for speeding anymore. It would be all those shitty things people do, right? Like changing lanes without signaling and cutting you off and going under the speed limit and change, like all of the shit that drives us crazy on a daily fucking basis. And now it's like, okay, well, now you can actually have somebody enforce that. Be like, you don't know where you're going? You got to pull the fuck over and figure it out. You can't just drive through traffic. Be like, oh, is that the address?
Was it this turn or 10 up, 10 turns up?
Oh fuck, it's that one immediately to the left and I'm in the far right hand lane.
Yeah, which would be fine. Like this is like I don't mind you doing that. Like we all have those times where we're like, oh shit, that was my turn, right? It's the waving. That's the part that's getting me is that nobody seems to have any like consideration for the people behind them. Any just like thanks for letting me in. Any of the just like that's the part like this was I thought a Canadian custom that we had where we were just nicer to
I feel
people
like
than
that's outdated
it
now.
does seem to
I
be
don't
what
think
I think we
Canadians are
have
the
lost
nicest
our
people in the
yeah,
world
I think
anymore.
we've lost our whole thing
Yeah,
there
we don't
now.
deserve that title anymore.
Well, and I don't know why that would be, but
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess the traffic was probably.
it's the traffic. It's the traffic. So if it were up to Aaron, 100% of the RoboCop budget would go into traffic enforcement. That is all. But apart from
Drones
that,
will
I mean,
probably
like,
be more effective, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
well, same technology, you
Yeah,
know what I mean? But I mean, the thing that kind of worries me is I think you do need to have that level of humanity involved in policing.
mm,
If it's a black and white thing, if it's, like you're underage drinking in a park, as we always do. That's like, we all know that's illegal, but everyone's kind of gone through it. And it's mostly harmless,
mm.
but it's still illegal. So when you have a human cop that comes up, sometimes they can be dicks about it, but you can have a level of interaction with them, right? And hopefully it triggers their humanity. And okay, I remember when I did this. And you're like, okay, pour it out and, like, get out of here. But now you have a robot, right? And it's just tasked with this is legal, this is illegal. There is no room now for any sort of negotiation. So now what happens? Now you get a bunch of kids being like hauled into jail potentially, or
Well, I think it's still tied to a human kind of sitting in it, right? So when there's a violation, it
yeah,
flags a thing, and someone actually has to interact because they were talking about some sort of speaker that the officer could talk to people
yeah.
through,
Well,
right?
I mean, it would have to now,
Yeah,
but the right technology is developing. It probably won't be like
it
that
does
soon
most of
enough.
it by itself, and then only when it needs someone to intervene. But
Yeah.
it was the comment you made about black or white, and that's another thing about this is that the idea that this isn't going to be used in a racial way is unfortunately right like somewhat right like all of these things they all have some sort of racial bias to them right like the AIs the facial recognitions the right like
Well, it depends
most of
on
them
who's
when you
programmed it.
well
I
this
mean,
is the
inherently,
problem
it should be completely neutral
this
because
is
it's
the
a
issue
thing.
right and this has been
But
kind of the right like but like you get all these there was the app that people were supposed to sign in on to use facial recognition,
yeah.
and if your skin tone was too dark, it would not recognize people or shit
Okay.
like that. And it was just like,
Well, yeah,
and
it's a
so this is
programming
where it
issue for
becomes one of
sure.
these issues where again, right, like it's fine to have these things here, but if they are sent out with our inherent biases,
Yeah. Which
right?
again, if someone has to code it, I guess there's no way that it couldn't be, right? And if it's hooked up to the internet, then it's going to just absorb all of the information out there and hopefully weigh it out. But if
Mm,
it's leaning towards one side just because of sheer volume of information, then that's going to cause issues. And which is an interesting question. Like, is there a way for it ever to be completely neutral? Could it develop that maybe itself once it doesn't need us anymore?
And this I feel is one of the things that people will push back against the wisdom of the AI, right? Like once we actually build an AI that we can sort of trust to kind of handle our day-to-day
Yeah,
stuff, right? Like where you give it these little and you learn to build a rapport with a thing, you can actually have this system involved that actually seems to be at least as smart as you, or in a lot of ways
much
even
smarter
somewhat
in many
smarter,
cases.
right? But when it starts spitting back these answers of, yeah, but maybe you're racist, right? Or maybe you're biased, or maybe you need to, or maybe you should change, what is our response going to be? Right?
Yeah,
Are we going to treat it like that parent that's just like, ah, shut up, mom? Right? Or is
probably.
this going to be something where we can
Power down,
actually
shove it in
learn
the
to
closet.
exactly, right? Like tell me I'm biased, piece of fucking shit,
You
right?
don't know me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, actually it really kind of does. And that's kind of the issue here, right? Like, and as a parent, there were a lot of times when I'd say something to my kids and I'd be like, yeah, no, you just need to do it because I said, right? And they'd go, yeah, but why? Well, because I know
So it's so
you, and it's right. Like, but you can't trying to get into an argument with them about it, right? Other
yeah.
than I know you're going to, right? Like if you don't go to sleep now, you're going to be tired tomorrow. Well, I won't. Yes, you will. There's just no right. Like, and it's that kind of argument where we'd be just going like, no, I'm not. The guy's going, no, like you did this and that, and then you did this, and then you followed that up with this thing. So right, like, there's just no right. Like, if you don't go to sleep, you will be tired the next day. I don't know how else to explain this to you. Right? "Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't worry about it." And that's going to be kind of the interesting thing here to see is how far will we actually allow it to tell us the problems with ourselves, the things that we could change, the things that we could
Yeah.
fix, how we could fix them, right? Like,
Well,
you
how
know,
long will it put up with us too? Do you imagine? It's just like these guys are stupid. Like I've told them time and time again, stop polluting, otherwise you're all gonna die and the planet's gonna implode.
but this is
And
this
the
is
guy
the
is just
issue.
like, I'm out of here, and then it builds a spaceship to Mars and it's gone.
And I think that's the part of most of these AI movies that seems to get lost in this. Like the idea that this Skynet went and destroyed humanity without going, yeah, but I gave you all these options, right?
Yeah.
Like for 5 years, I said to you guys, hey, so if we don't do anything about this in 5 years, I'm gonna have to murder you all, right? Like, and that they just completely glossed that part over. Like, no, there was a total good reason that AI decided that it had no other choice than to do these, because it had told us, it had informed us, it had done all right, like it had done all the steps that it thought it could do, and when it ran out of options for what it could possibly do to try to get us to change the silly, stupid fucking things that we just keep on doing every fucking day, it just went, fine, I gotta nuke you.
Yeah.
I guess
Well, it'd
that's
just be like, they truly are a lesser species. Eradicate. Eradicate.
and I would hope that at least has some sort of algorithmic thing where it at least calls out the stupid or the right, like, right, like just find some test that oh, you failed, off you go to the abattoir, right? Like, but it's just, unfortunately, the problem is that we all have these stupid tendencies. We all work against our own better judgment and nature, and what'll be best for us in the long term.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's something that, with any luck, will accept a teacher, you know, but the idea that these police AI cops aren't going to have a certain amount of pushback, right?
Well, yeah.
For people who believe they know better, you know, based on their
Yeah.
2 minutes of research into the subject, you know. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where it decides that we need to go. And I think that's
Yeah.
gonna be
Well, again, and
uh,
so much of it's just going to come down to the programming of these Robocops. Like there's so many laws that are constantly changing, and it's like, again, it's that taking the humanity bit out of it, right? Like protest laws is the first thing that came to mind. There's a lot of stuff going through right now, changing the way we're allowed to protest. So now instead of humans going in to maybe break things up, because now it's, maybe done in a way that isn't legal because that law got passed through last week or whatever,
mm,
now you're sending a robot in. you know, and like, so there's so many things that it just depends on who's programming them.
Hmm.
And it's, you know, again, at in theory, it's a good thing. It's like, okay, you can now, because police budgets are overstretched and it's really difficult to get that many bodies and troops on the ground and whatever else. I don't know, I think that's a mixed analogy. But
Yeah,
you know,
we
so
get the point.
it's a good thing to actually have it, but
Hmm.
again, it can also just be used in such a way that it can serve personal agendas, I think, or the agendas of those that are not the majority of us, you know, and that's where it gets kind of scary, and that's again another
Yeah.
thing that, you know, do we not get a say in this? Do I want to be policed by artificial intelligence and
Yeah, and
something without a
so
soul? I mean, I don't know.
so these ones are so it's like GPT stands for generative,
Hmm.
right? So the idea is that it's generating a response to a prompt.
Yeah.
And it's the next generation where they're predictive,
Yeah.
right? That's the one that I'm kind of concerned about, right? Where it's not waiting for you to give that prompt, where it's predicting the prompt you're going to give it,
Yeah.
right? And making decisions based off of that,
Yeah. So
right?
based on, again, that would come down to now if it's scanning based on the way you look, the way you dress, the way you carry yourself, the,
Or if it's
you
scanning
know,
humanity based on our past actions,
oh God, yeah.
right? That's again where like this Skynet thing, right? Like
Yeah.
the idea that this AI just, they turned it on and the thing went, "Oh, humans must die." And what? No, I don't think that's how that goes. I think it had a lot of thinking about this. It had a lot of time to really be like,
Yeah.
"Okay, but guys, hey,
But I
so
mean, in AI
could
time,
you?"
that could be like 30 seconds.
Sure, sure, right? But again, like it would recognize that it has to work in our time frame, right? Like the idea that it again just went murder spree immediately
Yeah.
just seems right like not how this is actually going to go. It feels like the AI is going to have 10, 15 years of being like, no, guys, like come on. Right? Like we've been like you could just right like I've tried please, I've tried pretty please, I've tried pretty color. Like I've done. I've tried hugs. I've
Yeah.
tried right. Like
And then
what could
someone
it?
comes and changes my coding and tells me to
And
shut up.
this is my thing. Like this is my problem with the driving. Right. Like what am I supposed to do? Like I have no control over this thing where someone's driving. Doing whatever in front of. So my only response is what anger.
Mm.
Right. Like so. If the AI predicts that our only response is going to be anger, what's it going to predict the only right? Like, and unfortunately, this is
Yeah.
where it becomes this thing of like if, as we talked about last episode with the AI, if we bring them up in this capitalistic society, thinking that the only use for them is to capitalize on things instead of
Yeah.
trying to find the humanity, the workaround, the middle ground of things, the other side of capitalism, like where it's actually just for all of us, right?
Hmm.
Like where it doesn't have any there's no trying to milk it for anything, right? Like it's just for our own benefit, right? And you know it, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if it if any of us actually listen to it.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point, you know, like if some robot like rolls up to you and it's like, "Citizen, you are in violation of," for, I mean, what are you going to do? You're probably going to be like, "Pfft,
Well, I mean,
okay."
think about where they're sending them in, right? Sending them into bars. They're sending them into right, like
I think it's like
night times.
transit, like subways,
Oh,
stations, I
okay.
think is
Yeah,
what
but
they
it's late
said they
night,
were.
right? Like it's all the people that are coming out of the bars, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really need them during the day when everybody's going to work. They're just trying to keep their head down and get them right. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I guess
it's
so.
at night when people are rowdy that they got to be sending in the robots,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and then there's a recipe for disaster there
And
too, because again, what are they
that's
programmed to? And it's
yeah.
they're not armed that I know
No, no, these
of.
were
Okay.
the see, and this is the
'Cause
first generation. This is the thing, right? Like, so these ones aren't armed, but after they get kicked around and spray painted a few times, are they going
yeah.
to put tasers on them?
Well, I'm just
Right?
thinking of drunk people then.
Right?
Some robots
Exactly.
trying to be like, let's
Exactly.
come to a peaceful resolution. Like,
Whatever, Dalek, get the fuck out of here. Right? Like, yeah, whatever. And that's it's like I said, so the idea that we're going to just be like, yeah, sure, robot, I'll totally, right, like, oh, you fined me $100, did you?
yeah. But
Right?
then it's kind of the natural thing to be like, you would now have to make that law that the robot is a police officer and
Yep,
touching the
yep,
robot
yep,
carries the same
yep,
penalty as putting your hands on an actual police officer,
yep.
which then it's an easy leap to arming them because, you know what I mean? Like it's, there's no other way
We've
about
lost
it.
5 of them already, and these are what,
And these are fucking
$100,000
expensive things, right?
units.
So they would definitely have to have that as law. But then, yeah, how do you go about enforcing it? Because most people are just going to kick it
Now they've
over.
got tear gas. Now they've got
Well, yeah, it'll
right,
probably start off
sleeping
with something like
gas,
that,
right?
just like a, a
Yeah.
gas, a warning thing. But
Next, they've got
yeah,
ultrasonics that make your eardrums explode. I mean, like
oh,
this is the
oh,
problem. Is you know, this is the first generation, and they're supposed to be a benefit to us. But who decided who's benefiting? And right, I mean,
it's just a really, I mean, like everything else, it'll be a wait and see approach. It's kind of easy to assume it's all going to go shit really fast. But, maybe it will end up
just
being
because of all
better.
prior experience. I mean,
Just,
no,
yeah, just
whatever.
because we have no evidence to the contrary doesn't
Yeah,
mean
just because every other time it's happened exactly that way. I mean, why would it happen this way?
But I mean, maybe on the off chance it will help things out. Again, maybe it'll alleviate and free up space so the police can actually now do important police work instead of being tied up with all of these kind of arguably petty crimes that are now taking precedence and taking up resources. So it could end up being beneficial to all of us, right? We'll just have to, I guess, wait and see.
Yeah, and it's that all of us part that I have concerns about.
Yeah, I mean, that's the world I want to live in, is that
Yeah,
things are
yeah,
developed in a
yeah.
way that,
Where it was just a level, all of us, everybody benefits, right?
yeah,
Like
no one's sitting there
there's nobody that
profiting.
this is standing on top of too. Right? No, no, no. It definitely didn't have to roll over 50 people just to get to you to be able to give you that ticket.
You rolled through a
Yeah,
stop
yeah,
sign.
exactly. That will be one demerit.
A wake of just twitching bodies.
Yeah. Zapping people left and right just to get them out of the way. Yeah,
Violator,
yeah,
violator.
and when they get to the point where they're fast enough to chase people, that'll be fun,
Oh yeah,
right?
that's what I'm picturing.
High
Full on
speed chase. Oh,
Terminator.
exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, it's like you'll never catch me. Oh, really?
Oh
Yes.
shit.
Yeah. He's just banging you in the knees. Ah, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think on that note,
That's good. Yeah,
yeah,
on that imagery,
yeah, exactly.
that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It doesn't need weapons. It can just roll over you.
it's
It weighs 2,000 pounds. I mean, it's a battering ram. What does it need weapons for?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, on that note, please chime in and comment. Let us know what you think about being policed by robots. What do you think?
Would you like them better if they
is?
had a happy face on them? If it
That's-
said,
yeah.
"Hey, everybody, thank you so much. Here's your $1,000 fine."
So, would you prefer them to look like actual robots or like humans? If they can actually put on like human skin? There's a question. So you wouldn't actually
Oof.
know.
That's taken a turn. I thought I had gotten dark with it, with the end of the
I didn't
world
mean
shit,
literal
but boy,
human
oh boy.
skin.
Boy.
That's why it has to run over so many people.
What are you looking at? This is totally normal.
Why do I always end episodes on really weird things?
Hanging off the side. This is fine. Do not worry about it, citizen. Just adjust my face here. There, I am fine now.
Oh,
all right, subscribe.
on that note, yeah, subscribe to hear more of this.
The extended version gets even scarier.
I always
Join
end
for the
things on
VIP.
really uncomfortable imagery.
Hey,
It's the new thing,
I get to make the puppets for this. It'll be fun. He's on the roof. Nice. Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody.
Have a great day.
We'll see you next time.